There is something magical about a trail. The long green tunnel, or the red rock cairn guiding a wanderer across varnished slick rock. There is something elemental about a path, whether it is the light tread of a game trail, the wide old run of a railroad grade, or the clean hard pack of dirt cut through a meadow, or along a river, or the knife's edge of a ridge. Trails were marks made by humans on the earth before they were even trying. Today, trails have evolved into a very different societal entity. Modern humans look from the city to the forest as an escape, rather than the other way around. The path is the vantage point from which humans experience the wilderness, a guide in the wild. Trails represent different things to different people. For some, trails are a way to test themselves. For others, they are access to the wilderness. For some, trails may even seem an infringement upon the true wildness of the earth. On the trail, many people seek a lifestyle different from the everyday, and unlike many recreational activities, hiking requires nothing more than 2 feet. Wilderness, and a related conservation ethic, has long been an important part of American character. When the continent had nothing else to boast, it boasted of wilderness. As the newly founded America struggled to compare to European culture, it was considered healthy, aesthetic, nationalist, civilized, and cultured through arts and letters, to appreciate the landscape and even to recreate in it. In 1916, Woodrow Wilson created the National Park System with the Organic Act. The act tasked the Park Service with conserving the scenery and the natural and historic objects and the wildlife therein, and to provide for the enjoyment of the same in such manner and by such means as will leave them unimpaired for the enjoyment of future generations. This act created a dichotomy, as conservation and access are sometimes mutually exclusive. The American ideal of the wild is reflected again in the Wilderness Act of 1964 and the National Trail System Act of 1968. The Wilderness Act immediately designated 9.1 million acres of public land for protection. The National Trail System Act came at a time when interest in outdoor recreation was increasing. The accompanying recreation report stated, "The spirit of adventure springs ever anew in the hearts of Americans, young and old. In no way is it better satisfied than in the exploration of unfamiliar terrain or in the discoveries of the beauty of nature." Although much of the ambitious Trail System Act was never realized, it did establish the national scenic, historic, and recreation trail designations, which today include paths from the Appalachian to the Pacific Crest to the historic Juan Bautista de Anza trails. Altogether, over 60,000 miles of trail across the United States. The transition from seeing nature as purely aesthetic to ecologically important can be traced through the Sierra Club. Founded in 1892 by John Muir, the organization initially advocated protection of the wilderness for the sake of enjoyment and recreation. The club advocated for the protection of the Sierra Nevadas, especially Yosemite Valley. However, after Yosemite Valley was designated a national park in 1905, it became obvious that recreation was destroying the valley. Well before ecological interactions were well understood, the Sierra Club became one of the first to advocate for preservation for the sake of the land, as well as for the use of the people. The ideas of recreation and conservation converged in the 1930s in the Civilian Conservation Corps. The CCC planted 2.3 billion trees to restabilize soil erosion. They created over 800 state parks and built many miles of the recreational trails that exist today in America. Infrastructure built by the CCC, from hiking trails to lodges and visitor centers, enabled the growth of outdoor recreation. Their work became the basis of the modern conservation movement. The study of recreational ecology has a relatively short history. The latter half of the 20th century was a time when the demand for outdoor recreation increased exponentially in America. And it wasn't until the 1960s that there was an interest in the ecological impacts of recreation. Recreational ecology is the study of the environmental impacts, positive and negative, of human outdoor recreation. Early research showed that impact occurs wherever use occurs, which set a precedent. Impact is inevitable, and therefore management of recreational lands is always a series of balances and compromises between preservation and access. Two of the best studied, best understood, and most significant impacts of recreation are impacts to soil and vegetation. The most common impact to soil, for both hiking and camping, is soil compaction due to trampling. Compaction reduces porosity, reduces water holding capacity, and increases runoff, which can increase erosion. Vegetation is most often affected by trampling, but can also be impacted by tents or other shelters, firewood collection, and the influx of invasive species along trail corridors. Despite these impacts, trails are a powerful conservation and management tool that must be properly managed in order to be most effective. Although trails themselves are a human impact in the wilderness, concentrating use is an effective means to reducing the impacts due to outdoor recreation. Features built into trails, such as rock staircases, drainage dips, and regular brushing, are not just intended to make hiking easier for the visitor, but to actually reduce erosion, compaction, and other impacts. Additionally, maintaining aesthetic qualities of a trail discourages users from venturing off the trail and widening their impact. Robert Birkby, author of many trail building manuals, writes that people are drawn to trails because the beginning of a pathway draws us toward an adventure. The beginning of a trail seems both familiar and full of the unknown, for a pathway is an invitation. It is the promise of possibilities. Today, wilderness and recreating in it is something separate and decidedly different from the lives many people lead within cities and other human developments. It is this quality that recreationists often seek. Trails and hiking also offer a chance to connect with nature. Today, trails are built and maintained by professionals and volunteers across the country. Rooted in the Civilian Conservation Corps and a tradition of national service, organizations like AmeriCorps, the Student Conservation Association, and hiking clubs across the country put volunteer boots on the ground to care for trails every day. Trail building is a multifaceted culture characterized by strong communities built through shared hardship and the value of hard work and skill. Whether they are a full-time Forest Service employee or a first-time volunteer at a one-day work party, trail crews support and learn from one another on the job. Trail crews and other recreation managers help conserve the land while enabling others to gain access to those lands, thus indirectly supporting the wilderness experiences and environmental education of others. Trails and trail building have a rich and often overlooked history rooted in ideals of American wilderness and a tradition of conservation and service. Today, trails offer opportunities for recreation, education, connecting with nature, and connecting with fellow recreationists. Hiker and trail crew member William Larson said, "Being in the wilderness, hiking, feeling your heartbeat and breathing, makes you feel alive and just alive. Not alive and I have to do something about it. Just alive. It's life without conditions."